Hi, I'm Kelly. I'm an ADHD coach, and today I want to talk about one of the main things that prevents ADHDers from getting things done. And that thing is called a cognitive distortion. Cognitive distortion is basically a fancy way of saying that ADHDers tend to see ourselves through funhouse mirrors rather than through accurate lenses. And these mirrors can have different shapes and effects. Today I'm going to talk about 5 of the main ones that prevent ADHDers from reaching their goals, as well as some ways to overcome them. The first one is all or nothing thinking, also called black and white thinking. And it essentially means we see things all one way or all another way with no middle ground. For instance, if I don't have the perfect conditions to do something, then I can't do it. Or I missed my first to-do for the day, so I can't do anything ever again. This distortion can lead to really common ADHD problems like task avoidance, task abandonment, and perfectionism. The next is called emotional reasoning, which basically means using your feelings rather than facts as evidence for the truth. So you might think, I feel overwhelmed by this situation, so it's definitely impossible. Or I feel unattractive, so definitely no one will ever be attracted to me again. This distortion leads to ADHDers writing false narratives about ourselves, and this is a great way to destroy our motivation and self-esteem. There's also what's called emotional filtering, which basically means filtering out all aspects of a situation aside from the negative. So maybe you answered most questions in an interview really well, but you fumbled one of them. So your brain's like, oh, you bombed the whole thing. Or maybe you gave a great presentation at work and you got a ton of positive feedback, but all you can think about is how you stuttered during that one part. And when we obsessively focus on the negative aspects of a situation, it's really hard to move forward because 1, we think that all other situations will also feel as bad. And 2, it really destroys our sense of self and self-worth and self-esteem. And this tendency to focus on the negative is actually a really nice segue to the next distortion, which is called catastrophization. I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to say that. And that basically means that ADHDers often magnify negative experiences. So if someone doesn't reply to your text, you might think, oh, they hate me and never want to talk to me again. Or if you make a mistake at work, you might think, I'm definitely getting fired tomorrow. This can happen due to the heightened sensitivities and low self-esteem that are so common among people with ADHD. And in addition to amplifying negative experiences, ADHDers often minimize positive ones. Known as minimization, this cognitive distortion causes us to overlook positive feedback and accomplishments. So if you got a good grade, maybe you'd say, oh, it was easy, anybody could have done it. Or if you got praise at work, maybe you'd say, they're just being nice to me. This is often due to a lifetime of feeling like we're falling short, which can take a huge toll on our self-esteem and again, our motivation. Okay, so now you think you might have some cognitive distortions at play. What do you do about it? The first step is building awareness of when a cognitive distortion is at play. And this can be the hardest step because it often feels like second nature because it's what we've told ourselves throughout most of our lives. Don't get annoyed when I say this, but practices like meditation, journaling, mindful movement are all so good at helping you bring closer attention to your thoughts and feelings, and more importantly, creating space between your true core self and these fleeting feelings that tell you that you're not worthy or not good enough. If the idea of mindfulness feels really scary to your ADHD brain, 1, you're not alone, but there are also some really good mindfulness techniques that are really ADHD friendly and can make it more accessible. And I'll have videos about those too. In addition to being aware of when cognitive distortions are at play, it can be really helpful to have an awareness of how your ADHD is linked to them. For example, ADHD impulsivity can lead to jumping to conclusions, which can in turn lead to catastrophization. And executive functioning challenges can make it really easy to engage in all or nothing thinking. The more you understand the potential links between these cognitive distortions and your ADHD, the easier it will be to identify these patterns and start shifting them. So all that being said, once you realize a cognitive distortion is at play, it can be helpful to ask yourself a few questions to challenge it. Some good questions to start with are, is this based on fact or feeling? Are there other ways to interpret this situation? How might one of my loved ones interpret it? For example, if you told your friend that you were feeling like, I'm definitely going to be fired tomorrow no matter what because I made this really tiny mistake, what are they likely to say to you? After asking yourself some of those questions, you can start replacing the negative thought with a more positive interpretation. And I'm not talking about toxic positivity, but the fact of these distortions is that they're not rational. They're not based on reality. And often, positive interpretations are more accurate. Replacing these negative, irrational thoughts caused by cognitive distortions with positive interpretations is what's called cognitive restructuring, and it can be really helpful. And by practicing these things, over time, you'll get much better at identifying when these distortions are at play and reframing your thoughts. But keep in mind that this practice is not about eliminating negative thoughts altogether. Again, I am not a toxic positivity person. Instead, it's about recognizing them, understanding their origin, and reframing them in a more realistic light. Personally, all or nothing thinking and minimization are huge ones for me, and I'd love to know in the comments which ones affect you. And for more ADHD tips, tricks, and research, hit that subscribe button. I love you.